Boker Tov, good morning. We are all immensely thankful, first and foremost to God Almighty for protecting Israel in last night's attack from Iran. Of course, we thank tremendously and appreciate and pray for our soldiers in the Holy Land, in all their dedication, commitment, putting their life on the line, and so on, in protecting our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. And may Hashem continue to protect them, especially in the month of Nisan, this month, which is the month of Passover, the month of miracles. So may we be able to defeat our enemies, and may the people with evil in their heart repent and return to the purpose of their creation, to do good rather than to do destruction, and etc. So this past week we read something, we read in the Torah, we read in the Parsha. We'll also touch upon one of the themes of Passover today, but this past week we read a law, a directive from the Torah, which has a very difficult question. It's addressed already in the Talmud, and commentaries talk about it. I didn't give it the tzedakah yet. Nobody reminded me, huh? Let's give a little tzedakah, a little charity. Let's dig into my pocket over here and dig in and give some coins for tzedakah to give us blessing for this class. There we go. And let's say a bracha on our coffee. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shahakol niya bidvaro. Okay. I hope you answered amen. Or if you have your own coffee, I hope that you are enjoying your coffee. So the Torah says like this. The Torah talks about childbirth. The Torah says, Vaidaber Hashem el Moshe Lamer, and God spoke to Moshe stating the following. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, you should talk to the Jewish people. You talk to the children of Israel. Isha ki tazriya v'yolda zochar. A woman conceives and gives birth to a male. The Torah talks about some of the laws of impurity, talks about circumcision. The Torah also then tells us that some rules of what happens if the woman has a female, if she has a girl. So the Torah tells us both the laws of impurity associated with both having a boy or a girl. And then the Torah says the following, that when, after a certain period of time, she should bring, when the days of total purification for a son or a daughter are complete, she should bring a male lamb and a young dove as a sin offering. Torah details the offering, and it is a sin offering. And the question over here is, what kind of a sin offering does a woman have to bring? That seems quite difficult, quite harsh. I mean, she just went through having a baby, bringing life into this world, and she has to bring a sin offering. As we say in Yiddish, was geht da vor? What's going on over here? Something is very disturbing about this. So the Talmud has this question asked by the Rashbi, none other than the famous Rashbi, Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, who is interred in Miron. Many of you have probably been able to visit Miron. Miron, Rashbi, is probably where the largest gathering of Jewish people occurs on Lag BaOmer. Maybe even more than the Kotel, by the way. I mean, now they've placed some restrictions because of the terrible tragedy that happened several years ago. where many died because of a sort of stampede over there. But that's that. So the question is, so the Rashbi asks, why does she have to bring a sin offering, an atonement? And the Rashbi answers a answer which is a known answer. Rashi brings it as well, that when a woman is going through labor and the birth and the pain of childbirth, she makes an oath, she places an oath in her pain. She places an oath, I'm never going to do this again. That's what Rashbi says. I'm sort of paraphrasing. And because she made that oath in a time of duress, of pain, she has to bring an atonement. That's what the Rashbi says. The Talmud itself challenges this explanation of the Rashbi, but nevertheless, Rashi brings this explanation of the Rashbi, of Rashbi being an acronym of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, and it's difficult to understand that. On the lighter side, there is a joke that's told on the lighter side that, as is customary, that a woman after having a child goes sometimes to the parents' home, and after the sacrifice is bought also by the husband, there are certain influences of the husband's standards that affect the sacrifice. And the joke is told, the typical Jewish joke, that after the husband is living at his in-laws' house for a month, he also says, I'm never going to do this again. Okay, that's on the lighter side. And just kidding about that, because I have wonderful in-laws. Okay. So, but it's a difficult answer. I mean, what does that mean? And there's other questions with this answer. And although it's an answer of Torah and Rashi brings it, we're not going to focus on this answer. We're going to try to present a couple of other answers that are given. There's another answer that's given. Now, the Torah tells us that you have to bring a korban olah and a korban chatas. A korban chatas is a sin offering. A korban olah is a thanks. It's a thanks offering to God. And that we understand. It makes perfect sense. And, the woman, of course, is thankful to God for this wonderful miracle of being able to have a child. There's no greater miracle than that. And it even says that the child, the sacrifice, the olah sacrifice, is also being bought on behalf of the child who went out of so-called confinement and is now born and is in the world, and that's a blessing. So there are various explanations for the two offerings that need to be brought. There is another explanation of the sin offering that is brought in commentaries. The Klei Yakar, the Rabbeinu Bechaya, they bring other explanations over here, including the following explanation, that the sin offering that the mother brings is not for her own personal sin or wrongdoing, but it is part of the sin of the forbidden fruit. Meaning that the reason why the Torah in Genesis says a woman goes through such pain to have a child is part of the punishment of Eve, the mother of all of us, of all human beings. And because of her sin in eating and giving to Adam of the forbidden fruit, therefore, in Genesis, God says, "Be'etzev tel dibonim," that you're going to have pain in having children. And as a result, every single time a woman has pain, she also has to bring a sin offering as an atonement for the sin of the forbidden fruit. It's almost similar, where God, after the sin of the golden calf, says to Moses, "I have forgiven you. However, every single time, b'yom pagdi upakadati," says God to Moses, to Moshe Rabbeinu, every single time there will be some punishment, calamity falling upon the Jewish people, I will mix in a little bit of the punishment deserved for the golden calf, and that's part of the atonement for the sin of the golden calf. So similar, they explain of why the woman has to bring a sin atonement, because her birth is related to the birth, to the not the birth but the punishment of Eve, of Chava, and therefore the atonement. That's another interesting explanation that the Kli brings, I believe, Rabbeinu Bachaya brings. But I want to here address a different explanation, which I found very beautiful, very meaningful. And that's even associated with Passover, as we will discuss in a moment. And a deeper understanding over here. So this other explanation that I've seen is the following. It's not, we know there are Shivim Panim LeTorah, there are 70 facets to studying Torah. And while the explanations that we learned until now is not to be negated, but there's another explanation, and it really resonates with me, and I want to share that with you. So, at every situation, you could look at the positive, you could look at the negative. This answer looks at the positive. A woman and a man, but of course, much more so the woman, in preparing for the child's birth, there's a lot that you have to go through. There's the 9 months of pregnancy and all its difficulties and worries and concerns. There is the actual labor and the birth itself. And there's a lot of, and again, we men don't fully or truly appreciate this. And there's a lot that you go through. There's a lot of emotional anxiety, physical pain, concern, worries. And then the moment arrives. That moment arrives when you're able to hold your child right after, as soon as the child is born. And there is no greater feeling for mom and dad. There is nothing that comes close to that. Nothing in the world compares to that amazing, wonderful, spiritual, godly feeling of having a child. Especially after the worry, and especially after the concern, and especially after the pain. Look at a mother. When she holds the child for the first time, she's glowing like the sun, despite the difficulty and weakness of her health. Look at his dad when he holds his child for the first time. At that moment, one of the experiences that one might have is that everything else in life, all other challenges, all other things that you might have gotten upset about, all the other, what we would call in Yiddishkeit, all the in Yiddish, all the other things comparatively are Narishkeiten. You know what Narishkeiten means? Give us a thumbs up if you know what Narishkeiten means. All the pettiness, or even more serious things, but in comparison to this most elevated moment in one's life, in one's experience, you say to yourself, how and why would I get bothered or distracted or lose focus by some of these things in life up to this point? And for that, she brings an atonement. She doesn't bring an atonement for the birth, but she brings an atonement. It's an expression. It's a positive expression that now she and he come to realize how much energy have I wasted? How much sort of perspective have I lost from this so-called either outright stupidities of life or stupidities in comparison to what's really of great value. And for that, she brings an atonement and a commitment that I will now have a whole different outlook at life and appreciation, and block out so much of the negativity that pulls us down, distracts us, the worries in life which take us nowhere. And this was just a beautiful experience. And I want to connect this to Passover. And I want to also I want to also take this as an opportunity to motivate those listening and those who have influence beyond themselves in another important related idea. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Passover, Pesach, Passover. We're celebrating Passover next Monday night, a week from tomorrow is the first Seder. I asked someone yesterday, a young teenager. We sat down, we schmoozed a little bit on Shabbat. And I love these kids. I really do. They are so they are sort of the crossroads of life. It's a period in their life, these teenagers, where you could really impact them with the right words and the right encouragement, and at the right time, and they're open to listening. You could really have an impact which changes them for the positive. So we were schmoozing. So I asked this youngster, I said, tell me, what does Passover mean to you? What's its message to you? Not what you want me to hear as the rabbi or whatever it is. What does it mean to you? So the teenager, this particular teenager said, well, to me it means that I cannot have my favorite pizza. That was his answer. He was being honest. I said to him, you know what? I also like pizza. Who doesn't like pizza? I said, but is that all that Passover means to you? I said, in everything in life, there are the do's and the don'ts. The don'ts are also necessary. It's part of what creates sort of a healthy life. You're married. There are the don'ts of life. You have to stay loyal to your spouse, etc. That creates a healthy environment, a healthy sort of framework for a focused and positive and sacred relationship between you and your spouse. You have siblings. There are the do's and the don'ts. You have siblings. That means you got to share some space at home, and you could focus only on the don'ts. If I wouldn't have that sibling, I'd have the whole space to myself, whatever it might be, or I'd have my parents all to myself, whatever it is. Or you could focus on the do's, meaning the positive aspect of that relationship. We look after each other, we play together, we enjoy things together, we have wonderful memories together, whatever it might be. Every relationship has the do's and the don'ts. God tells us to do certain things. There are the don'ts. Yes, do not have leavened bread, do not have pizza, and so on. It's part of the relationship that we have with God, and it's part of what Passover is about. But we understand that there are the do's of the holiday. There is the positive message of the holiday. What are we supposed to learn from it and internalize from it? So, okay, point taken by this fellow teenager. And then I said, okay, so let's discuss Passover on a sort of a spiritual level. On the straightforward level, it is the time that we are celebrating our birth as a people. God took us out of Egypt, and we received the Torah, and it's the birth of a nation. And if you're saying I'm Yisrael Chai and I'm proud to be a Jew, you have to know what that means. And Passover, we're celebrating the birth of our people. Wonderful, beautiful. Okay, we got that. What else is Passover? It is celebration of freedom. Freedom. The Jews were enslaved. The people of Israel were enslaved in Egypt, and then they were taken out. However, let's take that a step further or a level deeper. What is freedom, and what is freedom's virtue is all about? So, we live in a time where, to use the, freedom is the most important word. Okay, fine, the most important virtue, freedom. However, Even that has to be discussed. And the question is, freedom without morals, freedom without ethics, freedom without any sort of core principles, is that a virtue? I mean, what happens if somebody has an addiction to alcohol and they're a millionaire and there's no shortage of how much alcohol they could buy, and all that's important to them in life is to drink alcohol? Is their freedom to drink alcohol something positive? What happens if someone is raised in a time that it's all about ourselves and my own gratification, and there's nothing to stop me to fulfilling that gratification, and that fulfillment sort of my pleasures and so on, my indulgements, myself, so, and I have the freedom to do so. Is that a positive? So this is not a discussion now about governments and whether government should get involved. It's about true fulfillment of a human being and his purpose or her purpose. So it is interesting and an important observation that when God tells Moses, I will take the people out of Egypt, he immediately says, and when I take you out, I will then give them the Torah at Mount Sinai. God Almighty, who knows that we are comprised of body and soul, and our essence is our soul, our godly soul. The body is a vehicle to fulfill our purpose, our mission. It says, the freedom that I will give you will only be true, meaningful, productive, healthy freedom when I take you, together with granting you your freedom, I give you the moral, ethical, godly code of Torah on Mount Sinai. It comes hand in hand. And that is the critical understanding of what Passover and Exodus and freedom is all about. Western democracies today are struggling with this. Freedom is an important virtue, and it is, but we have taken less important, not all, but some have placed less importance in how we shape our children and their character and their value system, so that the freedom that they will have will allow them to make the right choices rather than just self-indulgent and whatever makes me feel good choices. And in that vein, I want to go back to the discussion of having children. The Torah tells us that the woman brings a sacrifice, an atonement for having a child. And we explained it is not the child itself, it's on the contrary. The blessing and the greatest joy that the parents feel at the moment of birth elevates them to an appreciation or perspective to realize how much blessing they have, and not to get distracted by so much of the mishigas, of that which distracts us, that which upsets us. I looked up a statistic. It's just a statistic that I looked up at a website. I do not really know these sites. I don't know their leanings. It's called Institute for Family Studies. If you know much about this site, by all means, you can enlighten me. I just looked up at the site because I did a Google search. And over here, I see a figure coming up. I hope it's accurate. Today, you get media from all sides. It's not always, you don't know if what you're reading today is accurate or not. But here, I looked at a figure over here, figure 1. People happy to have children or want more kids outnumber others more than 2 to 1. Do not have nor want to have children is 19%. Have but wish had fewer children, 10%. Now, on a lighter side, I wonder when they did this statistic or this survey. their survey of if you want to have fewer children, did they do it when the child was 2 years old or when they were a teenager? I bet you the numbers would change. But that's on the lighter side. For those, okay. 34% have and are happy with number. Another 24% have and wish would have more. 13% do not have but want to. Now, the discussion today is not a comprehensive discussion on having children, but I do want to touch on that because that's part of what Passover is as well. Passover, Pesach, the best of my knowledge, is the only mitzvah in the Torah where the Torah explicitly says, "V'higadat levincha." We have the 4 children, the wise, the rasha, the wicked, the simple one, the one who doesn't know how to ask. The Torah tells us a lot of mitzvahs, a lot of commandments. Put on tefillin, give charity. But the Torah doesn't tell us, okay, this is how you should direct it to the wise one, this one to the wicked one. Here, there is a tremendous emphasis and a responsibility for us to find a way to inspire any type of child we might have. Because we're the birth of a nation. And if you want a nation to continue, you have to impact the next generation. Otherwise, it does not continue. It's as simple as that. Such an emphasis on our kinderlach, on our children. And here, again, just looked at the figure. So by 2 to 1, I say this because most of us, and this for the most part is still true in the religious Jewish world, or I don't like that word so much, but the observant Jewish world, that we get married early. We get married early and we have kinderlach. And we are blessed with lots of children. There's no greater blessing. The values, and even in the secular world, up to 30 years ago, people got married early. There's no greater responsibility, there's no greater blessing than having children. It is part of the natural cycle or natural, it's just part of nature. The bird, every animal has this desire. The success of an animal is that it's brought up its children, its offspring. A human being has free choice, as I said before, but we have to use that free choice that we were given because we were trusted, and it makes it valuable and virtuous, not to reject this greatest blessing that we have by bringing children into this world. It's the first mitzvah in the Torah, pru'avu, be fruitful and multiply. Especially if you are a family, and you have good values, and you have traditional values, and you have holy values. How much more so is it both a responsibility and a blessing for you to have and put in that effort and energy into having kinderlach. And there's no question the moment you have a child, you will bring an atonement in a positive sense, saying, why did I wait so long? Why did I hesitate to have another child? So if we could achieve in this class today that even one more child should be born, greatest blessing that we could have, the greatest fulfillment of our purpose, if we could achieve inner freedom, if we can achieve to inculcate both ourselves and our kinderlach with Torah values, with God, the creator of the world, given values, not to be distracted, not to be enslaved by the Egypt and Egyptian thinking that tries to distract us and have us lose focus in who we truly are. Inner happiness is when our soul is at peace. Inner freedom is when our soul is fulfilling its mission and its purpose. That's when you are truly content and happy, because that's so deep within you, and your very core. So may we experience that as we prepare for Passover, as we do the mitzvahs associated with Passover, as we think, we pay attention. Passover is a holiday of freedom. How do you achieve the freedom? Well, when you think back to those moments right after you had a child, the moments of true elation, which always has a mixture of spiritual elation, soul elation, that's how you could achieve true freedom. purposeful freedom, real freedom. So that's the thought for this week. Thank you for allowing me to share. May Hashem bless you to have many children and grandchildren and see much nachas from them in good health, be at their bar mitzvahs, dance at their weddings, at whatever age and stage you are in your life. May it be so in good health. Have a wonderful and Chag Kasher V'Sameach. We hope to still have one more class on Passover next Sunday. Have a blessed and productive and meaningful week.